There are nights in football that feel ordinary right up until the moment they don't. This was one of those nights. The stadium had been filling since the early afternoon, a slow tide of red, white, and blue swelling through the gates until every seat was a blur of color and noise. Flags draped over shoulders, faces painted, chants already rehearsed before a single ball had been kicked. This was the World Cup, the group stage, and for the United States, a win here meant something bigger than 3 points. It meant control of their own destiny. Standing between them and that control was Bosnia and Herzegovina, a team that had never been given anything easy in their history and had no intention of starting now. Bosnia arrived with the calm of a side that had faced bigger stages and bigger favorites. At the heart of their attack stood Edin Dzeko, a veteran who had seen every kind of pressure football could offer and had learned, over the years, exactly how to make the most dangerous teams pay for their mistakes. Around him, a defense built on discipline rather than flair, Nikola Katic and Sejpan Radeljic organizing the back line with a kind of communication that only comes from players who have marked each other's runs for years. Their plan was simple and it was smart. Sit deep, stay compact, absorb whatever the Americans threw at them, and wait for the one moment the game would offer. When the whistle blew to start the match, the tension in the stadium was almost physical. The USA controlled the opening exchanges, stringing passes together, working the ball patiently from side to side, but Bosnia's shape held firm. Every time an American attacker touched the ball near the box, 3 shirts seemed to appear out of nowhere to close the space down. Christian Pulisic drifted wide, looking for the half-yard of room he needed to turn defenders inside out. Fuller and Balogun made diagonal runs in behind, stretching the last line, hoping to catch Bosnia square. Neither found what they were looking for, not yet. The half wore on with the particular tension of a game that both sides know is close to a breakthrough, but can't quite find it. USA held just under half of the possession, a sign of how compact and well-organized Bosnia's defensive block truly was. Shots came and went, a low drive straight into the goalkeeper's chest, a header that drifted just wide of the far post, a scramble in the box that ended with the ball hacked clear at the last second. By the time the clock ticked past the 40th minute, USA had fired 9 attempts at goal and had precious little to show for it. The frustration in the crowd was audible, that low murmur of a stadium willing something to happen. And then, in the final minute of the half, it did. The move started simply enough. A pass rolled out of defense, picked up by a midfielder drifting into space Bosnia had briefly forgotten to cover. The ball moved quickly now, one touch, then another, working its way toward the edge of the box where the away side's compact shape finally, fatally, cracked open for just a heartbeat. That heartbeat was all it took. The ball was slipped through, met with a clean strike, and the net rippled. For a split second there was silence. The kind of silence that exists only in the half-breath between a shot leaving the boot and the crowd realizing what they've just seen. Then the stadium detonated. Fans leapt from their seats as one, arms thrown into the air, strangers grabbing each other in celebration, flags snapping wildly overhead. The chant started almost instantly and rolled around the bowl of the stadium in waves. USA, 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 loud enough that it seemed to physically press down on the Bosnian players standing with their hands on their hips, staring at the turf, knowing there was almost no time left to respond. The whistle for halftime came less than 60 seconds later. USA walked off ahead, 1-0, at the worst possible moment for their opponents to concede. In the tunnel and the locker rooms, the tone on each side could not have been more different. For the Americans, it was a lead to protect and build on, a platform earned through patience finally rewarded. For Bosnia, it was a gut punch that demanded an immediate response. Their manager didn't wait to see how the second half would start on its own. Within 6 minutes of the restart, in the 51st minute, he had made 3 substitutions at once, a bold, almost desperate roll of the dice, sending on fresh legs and fresh urgency in search of an equalizer. The shift was immediate. Bosnia came out of the tunnel with a different energy entirely, pushing higher up the pitch, playing more direct balls into the channels for Dzeko and his fellow forwards to chase down. The USA, who had spent the first half largely dictating the tempo, now found themselves defending in longer spells, tracking runners, closing down space that kept appearing and reappearing in dangerous areas. It was in this stretch of the game that Bosnia's ambition truly showed itself in the numbers. By full time, they would outshoot the Americans' 11 attempts to 9. Almost all of that gap built in this second-half surge. Then, in the 64th minute, the entire complexion of the match changed in an instant. It happened near the middle of the pitch, a 50-50 ball that both players committed to fully, and what followed was a challenge that left the referee with no real decision to make. He reached for his pocket without hesitation and pulled out a straight red card. There was no appeal that mattered, no argument that changed the outcome. A USA player was off, and his team would have to see out almost half an hour of football with only 10 men on the field, protecting a lead against an opponent that suddenly believed, more than ever, that an equalizer was coming. The reaction told the story on its own. The USA bench stood frozen for a moment, hands on heads, disbelief written across every face. Down in the away technical area, Bosnia's staff were already up, waving their players forward, sensing the opening they had been searching for since the restart. In the stands, the noise dropped from a roar to something closer to a nervous murmur, thousands of fans suddenly gripping the arms of their seats a little tighter, watching a lead that had felt safe just moments earlier begin to feel very fragile indeed. What followed was one of those passages of play that separates good teams from teams capable of something more. Instead of retreating into panic, the USA reorganized with real composure. Their backline reshaped into a 5, tighter and more compact, cutting off the space Bosnia had hoped to exploit. Midfielders sprinted box to box, covering ground for the missing man, throwing themselves into challenges, clearing danger again and again. And standing behind all of it was the goalkeeper, who quietly became the difference maker of the entire half. Shot after shot came his way, and shot after shot he turned aside, diving saves, smothered efforts at his near post, a fingertip save that curled a goal-bound header just wide. Every save drew a fresh roar from the crowd, relief mixed with growing belief that maybe, somehow, this lead could hold. Bosnia's frustration mounted as their chances kept slipping away. In the 80th minute, that frustration boiled over into 2 yellow cards in quick succession, mistimed challenges born from the growing desperation of a team that could feel the clock working against them. The stadium clock ticked past the 80-minute mark and the tension in the ground was almost unbearable. 10 men, a 1-goal lead, and a countdown that felt to the USA supporters like it was moving both far too slowly and far too quickly all at once. And then, against every expectation building inside that stadium, the USA delivered a gut punch of their own. It came from nowhere, the way the best counterattacks always do. A loose ball won back in midfield, a quick outlet pass, and suddenly 10 USA players were sprinting into space that Bosnia's high, committed shape had left wide open behind them. The move was fast and clean, one touch to control, a composed finish beyond the goalkeeper, and the ball was in the net for a second time. In the 82nd minute, playing a man short for the better part of half an hour, the United States had somehow doubled their lead. The eruption inside the stadium was even louder than the first goal, a release of nearly 30 minutes of pent-up tension all at once. Fans screamed themselves hoarse, strangers hugged, players on the bench sprinted onto the touchline in celebration before being waved back by the 4th official. For Bosnia, standing with hands on hips and heads down, it was the moment the equalizer they'd chased all night finally slipped completely out of reach. The remaining minutes played out with Bosnia still pushing, still searching, but with the belief visibly draining from their play. When the referee finally raised the whistle to his lips for the last time, the scoreline read USA 2, Bosnia and Herzegovina 0, but no scoreline on its own could capture everything that had happened to get there. A slim lead scored right before halftime. A red card that threatened to unravel everything. 30 minutes of backs-to-the-wall defending against relentless pressure. A goalkeeper who refused to be beaten. And then, when it mattered most, a moment of ruthless composure that turned survival into celebration. Outside the stadium long after the final whistle, the celebrations rolled on. Fans lingered in the concourses, on the streets, in the parking lots, replaying the chaos of that 64th minute and the release of the 82nd over and over, already turning it into the kind of story that gets told for years. For the United States, This wasn't simply a win that kept their World Cup alive. It was a night that tested exactly what this team was made of and left no doubt about the answer. The only question left now is whether they can carry that same fight, that same refusal to break, into whatever comes next.